that helps you explain and understand how to build a silver investment portfolio for yourself based on your own criteria. So that's something that I cover there in quite a bit of detail. I have to say that I have talked about that on and off for some time. I do have concerns about the banking sector. I think that, timing is always the difficult part when it comes to forecasting.
Of course.
I do think that the banking sector will go through some difficult times. The financial crisis was just an alert going back to 2007, 2008. And, I've been talking about that with someone not long ago, that people forget quickly. Major institutions disappeared. Lehman Brothers is gone.
Yeah,
You have,
yes.
right? You have Merrill Lynch got bought by another brokerage company. There's large names you just simply don't hear anymore. Either they folded or they ended up having to merge with someone else. I mean, a year ago, last March, I'm sure that most of your viewers remember that Credit Suisse it basically disappeared and was bought. It was a squeeze, and they were bought by UBS. There was apparently, no other way than that to save to try to save the whole asset base and institution. And here we are. Who would have thought? Who would have thought that, just a few years ago, that we would end up seeing one of the largest Swiss banks simply get folded into the other? And so I don't think that is gone. I think when you have high rates, interest rates, they get squeezed even harder because what it does is
Real-world asset wealth: how to protect your wealth from the upcoming financial impact. Download this brand new report for free and get instant access to our resources. Click the button below the video now.
many of them, their assets are treasuries, or in many cases long-term treasuries. We saw this happen after, I think it was last year, a little bit after the problems with Credit Suisse. There was a Signature Bank in the US, which apparently catered to a lot of high net worth individuals. They were exposed because they had too many long-term bonds in their portfolio. And when interest rates went up quickly, those bonds, they were not forced to mark them to market, but it didn't matter. People in the know saw that their assets suddenly were worth, if they had to liquidate them quickly, were worth suddenly a lot less. And so higher interest rates squeezes them. I'm not sure we're done with seeing higher interest rates. There are all kinds of tools that central banks have, but ultimately they control the short-term rates quite well. The long-term rates are much more difficult for them to control. I think we're going to, if you look at inflation forecasts, just expectations, I think from the public at large, they now see inflation considerably higher than they did over the next 5 to 10 years. I think people are starting to accept that inflation is embedded. It's going to be higher and stay higher. And because of that, they're going to demand higher returns from bonds. So higher returns from bonds means higher long-term rates. And as these rates, as the rates, the expectation or the demand for a higher rate from a long-term bond remains high, that means that existing bonds have to be discounted. So for buyers to ultimately get the differential, I don't want to get into that too much, but that's how bonds work. If interest rates go up, an existing bond that paid a certain rate, if it wasn't high enough, it will now be sold at a discount. So that hurts those bonds. And ultimately that hurts financial institutions as well. So yes, banking sector is at risk. I think other than that, by definition, black swans are not definable or not predictable, but you can look at the landscape and you can see, I think you can see the kinds of things that are, carry more risk. I think one of those is sovereign debt crisis. I think that what we saw happen in Greece, for example, several years back, is something that can come back. Banking, we saw what happened in Cyprus, for example. I think that people have short memories. They need to be very, very aware of the risks, and having some physical is certainly, a great way to have some kind of a safe haven protection. Absolutely.
Yeah, agreed. Let's say half of those things really happens, and what do you think? How would the part of the interview that every guest hates, and this is price prediction. So let's say those things really happen. How will silver price perform? Can you give me some range?
I can, and I mean, in the book, I talk about it, and it's funny because when I did my research to come up with a prediction, ultimate high sort of in silver, I thought, oh boy, should I go there really, because people will think I'm crazy. And then honestly, the numbers that I used, I mean, people can read it in the book how I reach my conclusions, and I think it's quite reasonable. Um, and since then, I've heard much higher predictions. So now I feel conservative. But but my ultimate peak, I think, in silver could be as high as $300. And so we are right now at about $30.
10x,
So that's a
10x.
10x from here. That would be a 10x from here. Now, I'm the first one to agree and accept that this would create all kinds of chaos, especially for industry,
Yeah,
because although they use small amounts of silver, nonetheless, for the price of their, one important input to be up 10 times would just drastically damage their profits, and they wouldn't know how to price things anymore. And it would, anyways. So again, I don't think that we would go there and stay there. I think that that's the kind of high we could see in a mania phase in a precious metals bull market. It could be in some kind of a black swan event, banking crisis, sovereign debt crisis. I hate to say it, but perhaps a larger or expanding war of some kind somewhere where people start to really get uncomfortable. So again, if you look at, I can give you a couple of examples, or even one just to keep it simple. But so there's this metric called the gold silver ratio. And that really just tells us, it's quite simple. You look at the price of gold, you look at the price of silver at that same point in time, and it tells you how many ounces of silver you require to buy 1 ounce of gold. Right now, it's at about 80